Hi everyone, Art Burns here. Hope you're all having a great day today. Welcome to the Showing Up to Your Life podcast and the YouTube channel. I am just so excited to be here with you today. I hope that you're all having a great day too, and I hope that you're meeting each moment of the day with presence, with acceptance, with compassion. You're allowing yourself to be led with compassion and to let compassion lead your heart and your decisions and your thoughts and your actions. And then overarching, that you have an overarching level of curiosity. Curiosity is something that's very intrinsic to mindfulness practices, right? When we're curious about something, we're completely open to that thing, right? We're not prejudging things. We're not closing off. We're not assuming that we know something, right? We're really just open to whatever it is. So curiosity, in a big way, it's almost synonymous with mindfulness. It's almost synonymous with the definition of mindfulness, which is moment to moment non-judging awareness, right? If we can be curious about our experiences, then that's what we're going to wind up doing. So that's one hint that I usually kind of talk to about my clients, to kind of get them into that sort of understanding of mindfulness, right? And because, as I talk about here a lot, it's not just about the times that we are practicing, right? Yes, practice is very, very important. It's vital, in fact, to developing the trait of mindfulness, right? Taking it from a state, which is when we're in meditation, to taking it to a trait, right? And so there's a lot of different ways to look at, how we do practice, though, okay? And as I talk about here a lot, right? There's the formal practice of sitting down, in a specific position, in a specific place, if you will, stopping what you're doing, closing your eyes, and just doing like what you see this guy on my shirt do, right? Although you don't have to get into that kind of position. And for all of you on the podcast, I'm wearing a shirt with a guy that is in the lotus position, right? And this shirt says breathe, and underneath that it says breathe because your life depends on it, right? And that's really the kind of core of how these practices work, right? Like, when and that's a quote from John Kabat-Zinn, by the way, who says that breathe as though your life depends on it, right? The idea being that your life absolutely does depend on breathing, right? Like, there's no gray area about that whatsoever, right? In fact, as I like to point out to my clients and whoever else is willing to listen to me, you can go days without drinking water, right? You can go, I think, 4 or 5 days before you're going to succumb to the dehydration, right? You can go months without eating food, right? There's been hunger strikes for like almost 200 days, I believe, so which is what that's, I mean, gosh, that's many months, right? But you cannot go more than 3 minutes without oxygen coming into your body. Like, literally, you will experience irreparable brain damage after 3 minutes of not having oxygen come into your body, right? So when you look at all the different things that we so-called need, to live, right? Breathing is right there at the top, right? Like, we literally cannot function, we cannot survive without breath, right? And so the quote in the statement, breathe as though your life depends on it, is to say, you know pay attention to the breath, because it's so important to you, right? And yesterday I talked about attention, right? And I talked about how valuable our attention is, right? Even if you look at, like, social media and TV for years, and radio for years, and everybody, our attention is how is valuable to people, right? There's a high cost or a high price that gets paid for our attention, right? And that's why advertising works, right? Of course, this is only just one angle of it. It's also very valuable to us, right? Because of the well-being factor that comes into it, right? It's very, very valuable, right? And so the idea then is to, when we can devote our attention, right, to something that is so valuable, like our breath, right? That, that is just the kind of, that's the sort of cross, that's the sort of connection point that this all kind of comes down to, right? Is that when we know where our attention is or where it is not, right? And we develop the skill to command that attention to be in a certain place. Why shouldn't that place be the breath, right? Because that's what, one of the reasons why we use the breath in meditation practice and in, informal mindfulness practices as well, is because the breath is always present. Okay, if I used to tell people a lot, like, if I give you a jar with a cover and I tell you, go get the breath that you're going to take in 10 minutes from now, right? And show it to me, right? Bring me the breath that you're going to take in 10 minutes from now, right? The closest that you could possibly come is to capture a bit of air that might be part of the breath that comes into your body. But the breath itself is not the oxygen, it's not the air. Right? It's not the air that comes in as oxygen or the air that goes out as carbon dioxide, right? That's just a gas. That's just a physical, element, right? It's either oxygen or carbon dioxide. Those are elemental, substances, right? In gas form, right? That's not the breath, right? The breath is a process, right? The breath is a process that happens continually, right? Continually from the moment you were born, right? From the very second that you were in this world, you started breathing, and you literally do not stop breathing until you take your last breath of your life, right? Like literally, it's something that keeps going. It's fascinating. I mean, it's not the only thing, obviously, that keeps going. I mean, your cells are replicating throughout your entire life as well. Your heart is beating throughout your entire life. Your heart starts beating even before you're actually in the world, right? But your lungs are functioning in that way too, I believe. I'm not sure how that works actually, so I shouldn't speak out of turn here. But sure, and then you're blinking your eyes. You're growing. You're shedding skin. You're shedding hairs. So much stuff is happening that's just automatically happening for our entire lives. But there's something about the breath, though. There's something about this exchange from the outside to the inside, back and forth and back and forth and back and forth through our entire life, right? One thing that I somebody pointed out to me a while back is that in every given moment, right, you are exhaling carbon dioxide at the same time that the plants throughout the entire world are exhaling oxygen and inhaling the carbon dioxide, right? So you inhale oxygen that the plants are exhaling. You exhale carbon dioxide, which then the plants are inhaling. And it's this constant exchange that happens. And again, there's something so beautiful about that concept of just this constant exchange for our entire lives, right? It just happens, right? And it's funny, breathing as well as thoughts and to a certain extent emotions as well, to a large extent actually emotions as well. It's funny because it exists in two different sort of levels, right? The breathing is something that can just happen, right? Like it literally just happens, right? Like you cannot, if you forget to breathe, you're not going to stop breathing, right? Like that's the point that I made a minute ago, right? From the minute you're born until the minute you die, right? The very last thing that you do is to take one last breath, right? Like that's literally for your entire life. That's what's happening, right? But the idea then is that this is just something that happens, right? It's going on. Like I'm sitting here talking to this video camera here, and at the same time I'm breathing. Now I'm not trying to breathe, right? But I'm not trying not to breathe either. It's just happening, right? At the same time, though, I can very much be intentional and control my breath, right? I can hold my breath for maybe a minute or two. I can breathe extra deep. I can make sure that I'm breathing with a certain part of my body, which is kind of part of the practice that I kind of teach people is to train your body to breathe in a certain way so that when you are breathing automatically, you're breathing in that certain way, right? But the idea then is that, I can control my breath, but yet when I stop controlling my breath still happens. So it's at once this thing that I do and this thing that is done to me, right? And that's one of the things that makes it so fascinating. And the same thing again happens with the thoughts, right? Like I can choose to intentionally think about something, right? Like I can call something to my mind and I can think about that thing, and I can continually think about that thing, right? But at the same time, if I'm not trying to think about something, thoughts just pop into my mind, right? And so it's another thing that's it's at the same time something that I do and something that is done to me, right? That I'm an active and a passive participant in the process, right? And again, same thing as the emotions, right? Like I can choose to turn on a video of a stand-up comic, right? Or I can choose to think about a joke, all right? I can choose to brighten myself. I can choose to think about anything that might make me happy, right? I can choose to go out and walk around and sniff some flowers and feel good about that and get a happy feeling, right? And so these are emotions that I can intentionally and actively cultivate, right? But at the same time, on any given moment, I can feel an emotion that I did not call to my mind, right? And I didn't call to my body. It just happened, right? And so it's really kind of fascinating. And this is one of the primary functions of mindfulness. As we talked about yesterday, it was the attention, right? And attention and awareness are kind of, almost two sides of the same coin. Or I guess you could say that attention exists within awareness, right? But they are very much related to each other. And that's the essence of what we do when we practice mindfulness, right? Especially when we focus on our breath. Because remember, as I said a moment ago, your breath is always present. That's why we use the breath as an object of meditation, right? Because it is always right here. Again, it's a process. It's not a thing, right? It's not a thing that you can go and put in a jar and bring back here and give it to me, right? It's a process, right? It's a continuous thing that is happening, right? And again, whether we jump in and we take control over that happening for a little bit, or we're just, kind of not in control and just letting it happen, right? It's a process that happens, right? And so that's what makes it a perfect object for your meditation, because anytime in your entire life, whether it's the middle of the day with all kinds of stuff going on, or it's in the middle of the night when you're trying to go to sleep, right? At any given time, you have the power to pay attention to your breath, right? Or again, the same thing is true for the thoughts and the emotions and even the physical sensations of our body to a lesser degree. But at least in the sense that that's not something that's either happening or I guess it kind of is. But anyway, the reason why we could use the breath though is because when we get into the thoughts and the emotions, we get into some real kind of storytelling kind of things in our mind. And so therefore, it's a lot, there's not, it's a lot more complicated. Let's just suffice it to say that, right? That it's just more complicated to pay attention to the thoughts and the emotions. Now, however, once you are established in your practice, then absolutely that becomes something that you can be aware of, right? You can, at any given moment, you can just check in with your thoughts and see where they're at, right? Am I having thoughts of worry and concern? Am I thinking about something that might be happening in the future? Am I thinking about something that might have happened in the past? Where are my thoughts? Same thing with my emotions. Same thing at that point, very much with the sensations of my body, right? I was just on a call with somebody earlier today where I was talking to him and I was saying, right now I am fully engaged in this conversation. This is true right now with this video, right? I am completely engaged with this video. I am looking into the camera lens. I am talking. I am not distracted. I am not thinking about anything else except what I'm saying to this video camera, right? However, at the same time, I am feeling my body, right? Like I am taking a little bit of my attention and my awareness, and I'm holding the feeling of my feet on the floor right now. Right? It does not disrupt what I'm saying. It does not interrupt me. It does not confuse me. It does not make what I'm saying any less intentional or focused or anything like that. Right? But it's possible for me to do that. Right? And it's kind of like a peripheral kind of thing, right? So the same way, right? Like you can look at my eyes right now. My eyes are not going to veer from this lens that I'm looking into, right? But at the same time, out of the corner of my eye, I can see that there's a hula hoop over there that my daughter left there, right? I can see that there's a window over here, right? I can't see what's outside. I can't pick up details for it, but I can see that there's something there, right? Because that's my peripheral. But as you know, I have not stopped looking right into this camera lens to see that stuff. So the same thing applies to our ability to sense our breath, our physical sensations, our body in any given situation, right? And so the reason I'm bringing all this up here is that, a lot of times when it comes down to practice, right? And this actually came up with my client just a little while ago. It's kind of like going to the gym, and I'm a real big believer in comparing meditation to the gym, because as I've said here the other day, right, when I was talking about blissful feelings, right, a lot of times people consider meditation to be just something that just relaxes them and kind of gets them calmed down, right? When they're feeling hectic, they do a little meditation, they come down, they feel better, right? Pardon me. And that's great, right? And that's very helpful to get into that state of relaxation, right? It's very beautiful and helpful, and nothing wrong with that, right? However, it's much more constructive to think about meditation and informal mindfulness practices as a skill building exercise, as an active, much closer to working out than to going and getting a massage, right? That's what I said the other day. That was the analogy that I made the other day, that learning to or practicing meditation is a practice, right? So it's much more, and that's where we talked about again the breath, right? Like it's much more about being in control of the breath rather than letting it happen, right? But in the sense of a practice, an active kind of process, right? So whereas again going to the gym or even learning to stretch, right, in the morning, like going through a stretch routine as opposed to going to get a massage, right? One is an active process, the other is a passive process, right? And so when we talk about that, it's very valid, right? And it makes a lot of sense to think of meditation and mindfulness practices in that sort of active way, right? Because it is something you're trying to build a skill, right? It's something that you're doing something, right? Even though that doing what you're really doing is non-doing, but it's an active process, right? But the catch to this, and this is where my client kind of came up with something this morning. It was like a real aha moment that I hadn't kind of considered this before, but in a lot of ways, when someone goes to the gym, right? They go to the gym, say in the morning, right? Like let's say, before work, you go to the gym, go for an hour, you do your workout, you do your, cardio, your strength, all that stuff. And then you take a shower and then you get dressed and you go on with your day, right? So one of the great things about that is that the gym is out of the way, right? It's something we've done now. I don't have to worry about that for the rest of the day. So now I can just go about my day, right? Now, of course, when you're just building muscles and then keeping yourself in shape and burning calories, that works, right? But here's the thing with meditation and mindfulness, right? And I talk about this a lot, right? That what we're doing when we're practicing meditation and mindfulness is we are intentionally doing this thing to develop this skill, right? But the other side of that, though, is that for your entire life, you have been unwittingly, non-intentionally practicing a certain way to live, right? Now, whether that's, lack of attention or not knowing where your attention is going, maybe it's a stress thing for you, maybe it's an anxiety thing, maybe it's a depression thing, whatever it is, that's what you have practiced for your whole life. And that's why we're really good at it. And that's why, it's a challenge to then change to be more mindful, right? To really be paying attention to what's happening as it's happening, because you have practiced the other way for so long, you've gotten really good at it, right? And so this brings me back to this idea of practicing in the morning and then figuring like, okay, it's done, I don't have to worry about it, right? But when we do that, when we throw our hands up and say, okay, it's done, I don't have to worry about it, well, now for the rest of the day, what are you practicing? Right? Because if you're going to just kind of separate yourself now from the process of practicing meditation, and you're just going to kind of go throughout your day and just do whatever whatever kind of comes up, well, then you're going to practice now, maybe not being so aware, maybe not being so attentive, maybe not being so present, right? And so that's where, a lot of times it's actually very beneficial to think of mindfulness practices more like this. Not the guy, but the idea of breathe because your life depends on it, right? And for all you on the podcast, I was just pointing to my shirt again and then covering up the guy, because the guy is showing a very formal meditation pose, but the quote is a little bit informal, right? So my point is that throughout the day, right, and this is something I'm going to invite you to try, okay? Throughout the day, right, you can, now whether you do a formal meditation or not, and I do recommend you do it because it is very, very valuable to get into that state of calm and sort of evenness of the body, the grounding, the centering. It's all very, very positive and very, very helpful. So do formal meditation as much as you possibly can. And if you need to learn how to do that, I can help you learn that. But here's a little practice for you that you can do throughout the day. It does not require any training, any experience, anything at all, right? Any knowledge or anything other than what I'm just about to give you. So throughout the day, I invite you to, and really, effectively, it'd be like every half hour, right? So if you can set a timer to go off every half hour, right? Then when that timer goes off, you just want to do something very simple. Okay, you just want to pay attention to 3 or 4 breaths. Okay, now specifically though, make sure you're breathing from the core of your body. Make sure you're using the abdomen to breathe. This is going to be very helpful in terms of reducing the stress, because you're sending a signal to your brain that everything's okay. So it is worth adding that one little detail to it. But even if you're not comfortable doing that, or for whatever reason, like I've known people who can't breathe with their abdomen for whatever reason, right? It's uncomfortable, it works against other things that they're trying to do and stuff like that. So that's fine. If that's the case, then don't worry about it, right? But whatever the case is, I'm inviting you to just, every half hour or so, just stop what you're doing just for a few seconds. Right, just for a few seconds, and breathe as though your life depends on it, because it does. And so what that means is just pay attention to those 3 or 4 breaths, okay? If you do that for, say, 2 or 3 weeks every day, okay, you're going to start developing the habit of paying attention to your breath. And when you do that, you're going to pay attention on purpose in the present moment, right? And so now all we got to do after that is work on the non-judging aspect of it, and that's the easy part. It really is. So if you can train yourself to do that every single day for about 2 or 3 weeks, you're going to start developing the trait of mindfulness that I talked about the other day. So that's a little bonus practice for you here. I hope that resonates with you. If you have any questions about it, I want you to get in touch with me, okay? Just hit me up with a comment below, send me a message, go to my website, artburnscoaching.com. Right on there, you can book a call with me. It's free. It's a free 45-minute call, and you can book that at any given time that's available. So I recommend you do that, because I would love to talk to you. All right, everybody. If you have any questions, anything, please get in touch with me. Thanks for listening. Hope you all have a great day, great weekend. Stay present, stay accepting, stay compassionate, and most of all, stay curious. Take care, everybody.